My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to go over the question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Now, this question is very interesting because it masquerades as an objective question, but it's actually not. It's very subjective, and that's part of the thing that I want to talk about today. So this question definitely is subjective in nature, but it should be objective. Now, here's some of the examples that I want to give you. If you ask somebody over the last 4 years, is your life better or not, they're going to use certain lenses to be able to answer that question. Typically, they're not going to look at the president, they're not going to look at the economy and go through data and evidence and the truth to come up with their answer. They're going to go over some of these lenses. And the first one, for example, might be their relationship. So over the last 4 years or so, if you've had a divorce or you've had a difficult relationship, you're going to look at the world probably with a lot more negativity. On the flip side, if you have a really good relationship, you probably aren't paying attention to all the details on the news. And so you're going to say that your life is definitely better. Also, when we're looking at if your life was better or not 4 years ago, we have to take a look at what things are your own personal failings, and yet you're blaming other people. Because in reality, how much does the government have to do with your own life of whether you make it good or not? Again, decision after decision, every time you think about something, every time you have a perception of something, every time you either decide to do something or not to do something, this is all on the individual. And yet we're going to look at the government as, well, maybe it's their fault. So again, we really have to look at when we're trying to answer this question, is life better 4 years ago compared to now? Take a look at your own misgivings, your own missteps, your own personal failings, and stop blaming other people for your choices and decisions. Also, let's look at mental health in general, especially in the United States. What's happening here? It's declining at an incredible rate. We can blame social media, we can blame a lot of things. People aren't socially interacting anymore, but we're definitely seeing a decrease or an increase, what I would say, in depression, in anxiety. Overall, in terms of the way people act, I'm seeing, and listen, I'm not special here. Yes, I am a marriage and family therapist, but we can all see these things. People now, they just can't stop complaining. Everybody's angry. They're weaponizing their grievances. What do I mean by that? Well, back in the day, if you had somebody that was complaining and crying all the time and blaming everybody else, we would look at them like there's something wrong with them. Like, listen, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, do something about your life. Stop complaining. Because a person like that would end up dying of loneliness because there's only so much that people want to listen to that. But these days, we live in this testimonial world where everybody's trying to outdo each other with their traumas. And now we have a guy who's running for president again, at the top of the ticket, Donald Trump, who does nothing but whine, cry, and complain and put out his grievances every day. And people stand behind him. Is that a measure of a healthy society? No, it's a measure of a profoundly sick society where people are looking at a person who's clearly depraved, who's clearly doesn't take any responsibility for anything he does, and yet people are looking at him like he's a masculine figure. This doesn't make any sense, and it hasn't made sense in any year of human beings' history up until now. Continuing with that, people are being incredibly rude, they're being incredibly disrespectful, they're being contrarian, being overly a skeptic about everything. Not because they have a level of intelligence and they're trying to compare what the truth is. It's just that they're trying to have their narcissistic voice heard. And that's pretty much all they're doing. They're yelling and screaming, they're commenting on social media videos, and they're just being plain not good people. We've also turned our society into an area where anti-intellectualism is a thing. Like, we don't have any respect for doctors, for teachers, for therapists, for anybody who has a level of intelligence and that's good in a field. We saw this in the debate where you had the guy, and how rich was this? You had a guy who's a graduate from Yale, standing up for anti-intellectualism, which I thought was really crazy. Besides all the other lies he said, that was an interesting thing that he put in there. Like, the mouthpiece for anti-intellectualism is a guy who graduated from Yale. So are you being used? Yeah, probably. So there's an incredible disrespect for expertise. So with all of this negativity, with all of this negative lens about the world and where people are going, if you ask somebody if you were better off now or where you were 4 years ago, again, do you think the answer is going to come from something that's bright and clear, filled with data and evidence? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. And that's what we need to look at, to ask ourselves, is this actually a good question? And are people actually answering it? I'm not saying that they're not answering it honestly, but I don't think they're answering it in a productive way. So let's answer the question. Let's go back about 4 years or so, give or take the month, and ask ourselves, where were we back then compared to now? Well, here's something. About 4 years ago, the unemployment rate was about 14.7%. Now, in December of 4 years ago, 2020, it was coming down to 6.7%. But if you're going to ask me if we're better off now compared to then, I'm going to tell you that the unemployment rate was trending down. It was 14.7, then it was 6.7, and now it's at 4.1 and still trending down. So again, for Trump supporters out there that have real difficulty with numbers, 4.1 and trending down is much better than 6.7, and it's extraordinarily better than the 14.7 it was. Okay, that's case one. Number two, December of 2020, the CDC reported the highest number of drug overdoses in the US history within a 12-month period. There were more overdoses during that time. Okay, so now we're still complaining about fentanyl and everything else. And the other thing is, it's a little off the target here, but let me just say it. People are complaining, oh my God, it's the fentanyl coming over the border. Let me tell you right now, you could line up my house right down my block, right, every 10 feet, put 10 pounds of cocaine, 10 pounds of fentanyl, 10 pounds of whatever drug you want. And you know what? I'm going to drive right past it. You know why? Because I have no desire for it. And there you go. There would be no supply coming in if there wasn't a desire for people to use it. So we keep talking about people bringing in drugs, but we don't talk about the people whose lives suck so much that they need drugs to get through their day. So again, we're missing the target overall. So again, 4 years ago was the United States all-time record in overdoses. So if you want to ask me if things are getting better or worse within the last 4 years, again, that was a higher number that's going on now. So that would be worse than for Trump supporters, again, that have a difficulty understanding numbers. Let's look at the stock market. The stock market 4 years ago was about 27,000. Okay, not bad. But it's 43,000 now, and I'm rounding down. So the number now is, not only is it in about 43,000, but it's going up by the day. And it's probably going to continue to go up because interest rates are coming down. And so if you can't make money that way, like in CDs, where else are you going to put your money? Most people, because they're not going to put money in real estate, they're going to put it in the stock market. And so the stock market is going to boom. So if Donald Trump wins the election, the stock market is still going to go up, most likely. Probably slower, at least that's what the professionals are saying. But Donald Trump is going to brag about how high the stock market is. And why wouldn't he? It's because it's at record highs now. It's been going up 12% the last 4 years in a row. So for Trump supporters that have difficulty, 12 times 4 is 48. So if you're looking at about a 50% increase in your wealth if you had your money in the stock market. So if Donald Trump becomes president, guaranteed, he's going to tout how great the stock market is. And all of his sycophants and all of his cult followers are going to say, the stock market's amazing, just because Donald Trump said it was. Listen, please keep your mind open. The stock market is amazing right now. Continuing, 4 years ago, thousands of people were dying of COVID per day 4 years ago. That's not happening right now. As a matter of fact, to the very month in October of 2020, you know who else had COVID? Donald Trump was diagnosed with COVID on that time. So again, COVID was a major problem. I've got a lot of clients and I have a lot of people that I know in my life. And I don't want to go over the number, but it's quite a few people that I've known who have died, or somebody who I know has somebody in their family who has died. I'm very happy to report that I don't know anybody within the last, say, year or two that's died of COVID that has happened to. So when we're looking at this, how much or where is your empathy and compassion gone to think, even to consider that it's not better now than it was 4 years ago? I mean, are you watching your friends die now of COVID? I don't think so. Continuing with this, since 2020 through the last 4 years, there's been an increase of 16 million new jobs, and it's going up. The last job report was outstanding. And of course, you see Trump and his supporters saying, oh no, those numbers are wrong. Oh, and they're trying to find out where it's negative. Ask yourself how patriotic you can be when you are downgrading the greatness of the numbers that are coming out economically right now. I mean, are you rooting for things to be bad? And if you are, and they are, I wonder why you would do that. So how can you root for America to be bad and say you're patriotic? Because there's a lot of people there that are working now. Again, the unemployment rate is incredibly low. It's like 4.1%. And people are complaining about inflation. Let's throw that back in there too. Inflation's at 2.5 and trending down. There are no problems with the economy right now. So again, if you look at it from a subjective point of view, I mean, you can't talk about there's like 330 million people in the United States. There's somebody who I'm talking to right now, and you're having trouble at your line of work. Maybe you got fired. Maybe you don't like your job anymore. Maybe your clientele, it's getting slower. Maybe because of things are changing with social media and things like this, you don't get as many clients as you used to. I could tell you this as a personal trainer, clients used to fall off of trees in the late 80s and early 90s because everybody was into fitness. And what happened then was that most of the people that were into fitness, they had a lot of money. They were doctors and lawyers and prominent business people, and they were like artists and Hollywood superstars, things like this. And I was in on that. And as a per hour rate, I was definitely making more money in 1989 than I am now, as when I do personal training. Dollar for dollar, because back then you could charge about $100 an hour, no problem. Some trainers are charging $100 an hour now, but I don't think so, not that many. And even if you are, $100 in 1989 was a lot more money than $100 in the year 2024. So trainers used to make more money in the 1980s and early 90s. Now everybody thinks that they're a trainer, and so you have this influx of trainers, and what happens is the prices come down because trainers by and large don't like to work that much. So you're getting trainers trying to make a living off of working 2 to 3 hours a day. And what it's doing is it's bringing down the prices of training. Again, do I blame the president for this? No. And I'm just naming personal training because I've been in the business for 35 years. I'm sure there are a lot of other businesses that are having difficulties too. But can you overall, not subjectively now, objectively look at the last 4 years and say that they were worse than thousands of people dying of COVID per day? The fact that we couldn't even go out places. By the way, I went over across the street. You couldn't buy toilet paper 4 years ago. So that's an upgrade in itself. And let's talk about this real quick because I don't want the show to be much longer than 15 minutes. About 450,000 people in America had their student loans forgiven. If you've had your student loan forgiven within the last 4 years and you're going to complain that this last 4 years wasn't better for you, I don't know what you're complaining about. It would have to be something really incredibly bad, because that's an amazing thing to do, to have your loan forgiven. And I could talk about this a lot more, but I don't want to keep the show too long because I don't think people pay attention that long anymore. So let me just leave you with that. One more statement. If you're objectively looking at, is your life better now? Is the world better in terms of economics and what we're looking at right now in terms of safety and health? There's almost, nothing's 100%, but it would be very difficult for any rational, reasonable human to think that your life is not better now than it was 4 years ago. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.